welcome to New Wave Global. It is April 17 when we are recording this episode number 118 of Unraveled with Marvi Sarmed from Washington, D.C. So, as of today, the United States and Iran are engaged in intense negotiations mediated by Pakistan to finalize a deal. And there are reports of major breakthroughs regarding Iran's nuclear program. But a key sticking point is the removal of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, with a potential compromise involving a long-term suspension of enrichment. At least, reports from the Western media, reports from Al Jazeera, for example, suggest progress, with Iran potentially considering shipping out parts of its highly enriched uranium, HEU, its stockpiles, estimated to be enough for 11 weapons. That is being reported by entire Western media. The United States has pushed for a 20-year suspension of all Iranian nuclear activity, while Tehran previously proposed a 3 to 5 years halt. But President Trump claimed yesterday that Iran agreed to, quote, surrender its nuclear dust, probably meaning HEU, highly enriched uranium. But Iran's state media disputed that a final agreement on the transfer of uranium had been reached. So another round of talks is expected tomorrow, day after tomorrow, April 18, 19. The current 2-week ceasefire, may I remind you, is slated to end on April 21, a few days from now. Thousands of people have already been killed in the Middle East ever since the United States and Israel attacked Iran on February 28. As of April 10, a Reuters report indicated that over 3,600 people have been killed in Iran, just Iran, following the start of US-Israeli strikes. And this includes, we must not forget, this includes over 1,700 civilians and 254 children. And these are conservative estimates. So much death and destruction. And for what? To contain Iran's nuclear program. Talking of nuclear programs, today, 9 of the world's countries are nuclear armed. The United States, Russia, China, France, and UK are the 5 official nuclear weapon states under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea possess weapons outside the NPT. While the overall number of nuclear weapons has decreased since the Cold War, the 9 nations are currently modernizing and in some cases increasing their stockpiles. In today's programs, we will shift our focus from the breaking news cycle of what is happening, what is going to happen on the talks, in the negotiations, and we will shift our focus to finding answers to 2 main questions. Why is Iran's nuclear program such a big threat to the West and Israel? What exactly is Iran asking for, and why is it so difficult to let it be, while its major rival Israel does not have any prying eyes on its nuclear capability? With me is Pakistan's foremost journalist and expert on these matters, Mr. Ejaz Haider. Thank you very much, and my apologies for this long introduction, but I just wanted to set the stage. So my question to you is, why is Iran's nuclear program? What exactly is Iran's nuclear program? That exactly is the threat of Iran's nuclear program, while 9 countries have nuclear weapons already.
Thank you, Marvi. Thanks also for this generous introduction. You're generous to a fault, in fact. Listen, the thing is that call it a paradox, call it an irony, but at the heart of Iran's nuclear program is the fact that it was initiated by the United States through a 1957 agreement under what was then known as the Atoms for Peace program. It was started by then US President Dwight Eisenhower. And so America had set up the Tehran Research Reactor and had also provided technology, fuel, and training and some highly enriched uranium also. This was obviously to the government of the ousted and now late monarch Mohammad Reza Pahlavi.
Hmm.
So Iran ultimately ratified the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1970 as a non-nuclear weapons state, because, as you know, the treaty has a cutoff point,
Hmm.
and it has five states which are considered as the legitimate nuclear weapon states.
Hmm.
But if you look at the treaty, it also promises a lot to the non-nuclear weapon states in order to get them to, at the time, get them to sign it,
Hmm.
which they did. So essentially, after signing the NPT, Iran committed its program to peaceful purposes.
Hmm.
And this cooperation went on until the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The
Hmm.
revolution temporarily suspended these agreements, but the foundational infrastructure remained, and Iran did not opt out of the NPT.
Hmm.
Just a segue, Pakistan was also part of the Atoms for Peace program. And we sent dozens of scientists to the United States. And when we started the nuclear weapons program,
Hmm.
the foundation, the base had come from all that training that
Hmm.
was that our scientists got from the United States when they were there, in and through the Atoms for Peace program.
Hmm.
And the United States, ditto, as it did with Iran, set up
Hmm.
the Par 1 reactor also in Pakistan. So anyway,
Hmm.
we are not talking about Pakistan, but the one point that I want to mention, since you mentioned Pakistan, India, and Israel, the Zionist entity, which are outside the NPT. Actually, Cuba ultimately, got into that. North Korea was part of the NPT, but withdrew from NPT because there's a
Yeah.
withdrawal clause.
Hmm.
Pakistan's, if one looks at, it's fascinating documents, by the way, which the late Agha Shahi was representing Pakistan when all these negotiations were going on at the United Nations. India had taken this position that this treaty is discriminatory
Hmm.
and there should be complete disarmament. And if there is no disarmament, if the states that currently have the nuclear weapons capability, if they do not
Hmm.
disarm, then there is no reason for India to sign this treaty. And we had cited India being our rival as in terms of our security perception, that if India is not part of the NPT, sorry, we can't be part of the NPT. So we stayed out of that. As far
Hmm.
as the Zionist entity is concerned, that's a completely different trajectory where they deceived the United States, they hoodwinked everyone, they were essentially supported by France, which helped them construct Dimona, where they have their nuclear facility. Ben Gurion and JFK had a number of exchanges, letters. A couple of times the American inspectors came, but
Hmm.
the Zionists took them to that part of Dimona, which had nothing to do with the real Dimona, where they were developing this nuclear weapons capability. All of this has been written about by an excellent monograph by Avner Cohen,
Hmm.
Israel and the Bomb.
Hmm.
So this is as far as the background is concerned.
Hmm.
Now, what happened was that the controversy erupted in August 2002.
Hmm.
And it erupted because a conglomeration of Iranian opposition groups, mostly based outside Iran,
Hmm.
and calling themselves National Council of Resistance of Iran,
Hmm.
they revealed the existence of what they said was a secret nuclear facility at Natanz.
Hmm.
Now, this information also got linked to the US British intelligence work
Hmm.
on late AQ Khan's network.
Hmm.
And then there were investigations by the German external intelligence agency, BND, that Iran was procuring European technologies, specifically industrial control systems, which were made by Siemens, which, as you know, is a German firm. And these control systems are used to control the centrifuges at the Natanz plant.
Mm-hmm.
And this disclosure essentially triggered a cascade of suspicions.
Mm.
And the question was, if Iran's program was genuinely peaceful, why was it being hidden? Right? So this was the question that was being asked. Then in 2011, there
Mm.
was an International Atomic Energy Agency report which collated and said that there was broadly credible intelligence
Mm.
with reference to Iran's nuclear program. And the report concluded that Iran had carried out activities relevant to the development of a nuclear explosive device, at least until 2003. By the way, Iran completely rejected this. Yesterday, I had Dr. Tariq Rauf, who was part of the IAEA verification. He was heading that, and
Mm.
Iran was his remit among other states. And he
Mm.
was telling me that there were lots of loopholes in that, based on the intelligence reports. There were lots of loopholes in the intelligence reports on which the IAEA based its report. But that again is a different story.
Mm.
Now the question is, before we come to why Iran, which
Mm.
has constantly said that it does not want a weapons capability,
Mm.
why is it so concerned about enrichment?
Mm.
Before coming to that, let me just give I know you want me to speak English and not get into technicalities, but for your viewers, what exactly is this
Mm.
uranium thing and this enrichment thing? So
Mm.
you basically have three stages. You start with mining and milling. So naturally uranium exists in three isotopes:
Mm.
238 through 235 and 234. And
Mm.
235, which is essential for weapons capability
Mm.
and other peaceful uses,
Mm.
it's about 0.7% when you mine it. And
Okay.
so you mine it and then you do what is called chemical leaching and precipitation. And
Mm.
you turn this powder,
Mm.
process it into a concentrated, semi-refined solid,
Mm-hmm.
which is what is generally referred to as the yellow cake.
Okay.
Okay. So
Mm.
once you've got the yellow cake, you go
Mm.
for the second step, which is conversion.
Okay.
Because this yellow cake that you have got, it cannot be used directly in most enrichment centrifuges. So it
Mm.
must be chemically converted into a gas. So
Mm.
how do you convert it into a gas?
Mm.
You basically heat this yellow cake and react it with hydrogen fluoride and fluorine gas. And
Okay.
you create what is called uranium hexafluoride.
Mm-hmm.
So this UF6 is essentially unique because it becomes a gas at a moderately low temperature, about
Mm.
56, 60 degrees Celsius. And
Okay.
so once you've got this gaseous form, then you go to the enrichment stage, which
Mm.
is step. And that is where these centrifuges come in, which are essentially tall, thin cylinders.
Mm.
And they spin at enormously high speeds.
Mm.
I mean, 60,000 to 100,000 RPMs.
Mm.
Now, I know because I've seen you drive. You're a fantastic driver. Imagine that if you could rev up your car engine to 100,000 RPMs,
Yeah.
it'll probably shoot off to the moon,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So what happens? Why is this spinning happening?
Mm.
So this spinning creates a powerful centrifugal force.
Mm.
And so it causes the heavier molecules, which is the uranium 238,
Mm.
move outward towards the cylinder wall.
Yeah.
So the lighter molecules,
Mm.
which contain the desired U235, they remain closer to the center. So
Mm.
the gas at the center, which is now slightly enriched,
Mm.
U235, is drawn off and fed into the next centrifuge. And you repeat this process thousands of times in a cascade
Mm.
until
Until
you
you have, yeah.
basically get the concentration of
Mm.
U-235,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And I must confess that this information I basically get from my two scientist sons,
Mm.
who because I've been doing nuclear strategy, so I also wanted to understand
Yeah.
what the real process is. Now to the question of why Iran wants to enrich.
But before you go to that, may I compliment you because you have made it so easy to understand. I remember in when I was in FSC pre-medical, and our professor, our teacher, used to tried to explain this to us. You are better than him, and we were taken to, by the way, Kahuta labs, and there were these centrifuges. They were not actual centrifuges, actually they were models, uh,
Yeah.
to demonstrate to us, and they demonstrated the whole process to us, and it
Yeah.
was only then that we understood, okay, this is how it is done. Our professor never was able to do it in 2 minutes like you have done, so
So
applause.
it's always good to have to actually have a model of how it works,
Yeah.
because you remember Olympic Games where
Mm.
the US and the Zionist entity had introduced this virus
Mm.
called Stuxnet into the Natanz facility,
Mm.
and that virus was actually meant to make the centrifuges go wonky.
Mm.
And that's exactly what happened. So they tried to set the Iranian program back by many years
Mm.
by destroying the centrifuges, because they are essential.
Mm.
Getting that concentrated through this cascading
Yeah. Yeah.
process to get the concentration, and then
Mm.
of course you can raise the percentage
Mm.
of enrichment
Mm.
from you need about 3.5%, which is for peaceful purposes, medicine, agriculture, a
Yeah.
number of other uses. But if you go beyond 20%, and
Mm.
Iran went up to 60%, and we can talk about why Iran did that,
Mm.
uh, then of course you are moving towards weapons grade, uh,
Mm.
what you call HEU, highly
Yeah.
enriched uranium.
Mm.
So why does Iran want to do this,
Yeah.
right? This is one of the issues.
Mm.
So we know that it has steadfastly refused to abandon enrichment,
Mm.
and this is despite crippling sanctions.
Mm.
Okay, and it would appear irrational to many cost benefit
Mm.
analysts or analyses. But the issue is not about economics. There is the issue of economics. There's no doubt about that. Iran wants sanctions relief, but there is also the issue of identity and
Mm.
technical know-how.
Mm.
So it is also deeply ideological,
Yeah.
and it's also about national prestige. But more than that,
Mm.
if you look at the text of NPT, Article 4 of the NPT
Mm.
talks about and I'm talking about the non-nuclear weapon states, as inalienable right to
Mm.
enrich uranium
Mm.
for peaceful purposes. And Article 4 has to be read in conjunction with Articles 1 and 2 of the treaty.
Okay.
So, from a legal perspective,
Mm.
it is Iran's right, and Iran has made this point, it is Iran's right to
Mm.
enrich you.
Mm.
Add to that Add to that three other factors. One is the expression of sovereignty.
Mm.
The other is the issue of technological modernity.
Mm.
And the third factor is resistance to Western domination.
Yeah.
And it's important because
Mm.
it's a symbol of what post-revolutionary Iran has been expressing and can achieve against external pressure.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand what Iran is doing here. As
Hmm.
far as the Zionist entity is concerned,
Hmm.
which I told you earlier,
Hmm.
it's a fascinating story of how they developed and what kind of deception they
Hmm.
used to develop a nuclear weapons capability.
Yeah.
The fact is that the Zionist entity believes that Iran is an existential threat
Hmm.
because Iran, just like us, we
Hmm.
don't accept. I mean, you and I,
Hmm.
the state of Pakistan,
Hmm.
even before the formation of Pakistan,
Hmm.
the All India Muslim League was very clear that the land of Palestine
Hmm.
belongs to the Palestinians,
Exactly. Yeah.
which incidentally includes the Jewish population,
Hmm.
Christian population,
Hmm.
and Muslim population.
Hmm.
And after the formation of Pakistan, when the United Nations was debating this issue of the division of Palestine,
Hmm.
the British mandated Palestine at that time,
Yeah.
uh, Sir Zafrullah Khan, who was our foreign minister,
Hmm.
he was very clear. We voted against it. So we
Hmm.
do not recognize the state. For us, it is Palestine, which is currently in Zionist occupation.
Yeah.
Ditto for Iran, post-revolutionary Iran,
Hmm.
that this is an entity which needs to end.
Yeah.
And so the Zionist entity considers Iran as an existential threat. And
But
Iran
Pakistan's position is
has
the
come to
same.
look at the and Iran has come to look at the Zionist entity in collusion with the United States also as an existential threat. So we're talking about a sense of mortal combat
Yeah.
between two state entities.
Yeah, but Ijasa, Pakistan also has the same view of Israel as of Iran. But our relationship, we just do not recognize Israel. And Israel is, I mean, Israel's relationship with Pakistan is different from Israel's relationship with Iran. Why is that?
No, because you see, the Iranian policy, post-revolution policy,
Hmm.
uh, had this concept, which
Hmm.
is sometimes called the longhand strategy, sometimes it's called the forward defense strategy. Iran has been not just vocal in
Hmm.
support of Palestinians, but Iran has actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Has actively sought to increase the capabilities of
Hmm.
actors
Yeah.
that can operate against the Zionist entity.
Yeah.
Now, for instance,
Hmm.
Hezbollah came into being because of the Zionist entity's aggression against Lebanon. And they fought the Zionists and ultimately pushed them back. And Iran has been supporting Hezbollah, although Hezbollah has its own agency also. This whole thing as if Hezbollah is just simply Iran's proxy. But I mean, I frankly dislike this term because Iran doesn't have proxies. Iran has allies
Hmm.
that share Iran's ideological and geopolitical approach towards the Zionist entity.
Hmm.
Houthis are another set of groups.
Hmm.
So one is this forward defense policy. The other,
Hmm.
of course, because Iran was under sanctions,
Hmm.
it could not develop an air force, which is
Hmm.
a very expensive venture, frankly.
Hmm.
So it focused on missilery,
Hmm.
and it has been developing missiles
Yeah.
for a very long time.
Hmm.
And the last 10 years or so, it has also invested a lot in developing drones,
Drones.
which are direct attack munitions, the kamikaze drones, also loitering munitions.
Hmm.
And thirdly, at home,
Hmm.
Iran developed this concept of mosaic defense, which is essentially
Hmm.
to dispersal and delegation.
Hmm.
Because if you look at the Iranian strategic literature,
Hmm.
they studied the American war against Iraq
Hmm.
and also the American war on Afghanistan very closely.
Hmm.
And they realized that given the asymmetry,
Hmm.
because the United States is extremely powerful
Hmm.
militarily,
Hmm.
Iran will fight its own war against the United States. It will not fight on America's terms.
Yeah.
This is one of the most important things
Hmm.
in operational strategy.
Yeah.
If you are weak
Hmm.
and you fight on your adversary's terms,
Hmm.
you will be beaten.
Yeah.
So you have to innovate.
Hmm.
Your force employment should be such as to essentially raise the costs,
Hmm.
direct and indirect costs for your
Hmm.
efforts. And that is exactly what Iran has done this time round.
Hmm. Yeah. And I would just go back a little bit when you talked about 2002 and then discovery in 2011. That contributed to the distrust on Iran. But we have seen so many overtures by Israel and by United States that would create even bigger distrust on these entities. But still, Iran remains Iranian regime, but these are so-called democracies. But anyway, I won't go into this petty kind of thing. I would fast forward. This happens in 2002 and 2011, and now we come to 2015 when JCPOA happens. So in JCPO, as far as I know, I remember there were five things. The uranium enrichment, like 3.67% level was, restriction was placed on Iran. Then there was centrifuge limit. I think 5,000 something centrifuges machines for 10 years or 10 years, I think. And then there was this plutonium path that was closed. There was this Fordo facility.
Iran's program, they keep talking about the Iraq facility.
Mhm.
But the Iranian program has not been plutonium based, by the way. It
Okay.
has always been uranium based.
Mm.
But you see, the idea of, because JCPOA
Mm.
is a very thick document with lots of annexures and the
Yeah.
rest of it.
109
And,
pages.
yeah. And it had a number of sunset clauses also, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. The Iranian strategy was
Mm.
what we call nuclear latency. That
Mm.
one is that you cross the red
Mm.
line, which is
Mm.
what DPRK did,
Mm.
North Korea did, right?
Mm.
And acquired a nuclear weapon.
Mm.
The other is that you totally disarm,
Mm.
right? You say we are not going to enrich. We can go and we can get the international bank whenever we need LEU. We
Mm.
can get it from there, and other states can support us, and blah blah blah.
Mm.
Iran was in the middle through
Mm.
nuclear latency, and one of the reasons it chose that path was that it was, as I said, technological modernity also, technological know-how also, the expression of sovereignty also, the right to enrichment under Article 4 of the NPT also, but also essentially a leverage
Mm.
in terms of negotiations.
Mm.
And the 2015 JCPOA that you have referenced was the high point of the success of this latency strategy.
Mm.
But, and hindsight is 2020.
Yeah,
Uh, but the fact is that when Trump walked out of JCPOA
2018. Yeah.
2018, and when Biden came back, Biden
Hmm.
was never really interested in going back to the JCPOA, although Iran also overplayed its hand, but that's a separate story.
Hmm.
Uh, and the Europeans were basically lapdogs, so they were neither here nor there. They
Hmm.
kept saying that we are going to do this, that, and the other, and stay within the JCPOA and create some kind of space for Iran, but it never went beyond just rhetoric.
Hmm.
Essentially, Trump walks out. Biden doesn't walk back in on the basis of original JCPOA, and
Hmm.
the whole thing hangs fire. From then on, Netanyahu, who has been for the last 40 years been trying to get the United States to somehow get into
Hmm.
a war with Iran, found the opportunity, and we suddenly realized that latency strategy, which has actually worked in favor of Iran, was
Hmm.
now working against Iran.
Hmm.
It's a very interesting sort of,
Yeah.
uh, so in other words, the bargaining chip,
Hmm.
it kind of backfired.
Hmm.
So you pursue latency, essentially that you have the technical capacity to produce a weapon quickly
Hmm.
without actually doing so,
Hmm.
and you do it both as a technological hedge and a diplomatic bargaining chip.
Hmm.
And so you create enough leverage to negotiate sanctions relief, which was extremely important for Iran, still is extremely important for Iran.
Hmm.
And as I said, this was the logic that basically animated the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. But now has become problematic, and that is what I would call the peril of the threshold.
Hmm.
And this is the most consequential dynamic which is now unfolding. As
Hmm.
a matter of fact, there's a lot of scholars of nuclear proliferation, nuclear strategy have been arguing that military strikes on a threshold state
Hmm.
may produce the opposite of their intended effect. In other words, if you if you think that the pursuit of nuclear weapons
Hmm.
was or is dangerous,
Hmm.
having an unfinished bomb, and unfinished bomb is a kind of metaphor
Hmm.
for your technical know-how to
Hmm.
move up the ladder
Yeah.
towards grade uranium, but
Hmm.
stop short of it.
Hmm.
So Iran has now been transformed from a state with latent nuclear capability into a state with a nuclear grievance.
Exactly. It's a completely counterproductive. On the one hand, you have so much of pressure on Iran.
Yeah.
Even 3.67% was not acceptable to Donald Trump and Netanyahu,
Yeah.
and they walked out of it. And now they are asking for zero. And if I was Iran, if you were Iran, you would like to make the bomb, because if Iran had the bomb, it would have this kind of security ensured. Like Pakistanis know it. If Pakistan did not have a nuclear bomb, our position would have been very different. Although I was among those people who were demonstrating against the nuclear
I
weapons
know.
at
I
that
know.
time. So, and I'm against nuclear weapons, but throughout the world, not. There should not be. There is a nuclear disparity in the nuclear world order, because I feel there's not even a discussion of what we are doing, what the world is thinking about Israel's nuclear capability. Just because Israel did not sign NPT, it has a free pass, and
Yeah.
Iran. So that is an incentive for countries to actually build the nuclear capability, but not sign NPT, so that they are outside the prying eyes. So,
You're absolutely right. But here's the thing: the world is not fair.
Yeah.
The world has never been. So one of the reasons for the realist school of thought,
Mm.
whether the classical realism or whether, whether it's the Morgenthau kind of realism or the Waltz kind of realism, or ultimately the structural offensive realism of John Mearsheimer. And there's a structural issue here,
Mm.
with the anarchy and all of that, and no world government, every state trying to maximize its interests and the rest of it. I don't know. I mean, I can't really translate this into English, but since I went to an all boys school, so we
Mm.
used to, whenever we had groups fighting each other, so we used to say at the end of it, "Doda apni apni." So, so when it comes to global anarchy and all of that, at the
Mm.
end of the day, the only real guarantee
Mm.
is what you have yourself, in
Yeah.
terms of how well you can defend yourself and how well you can punish an aggressor. And
Mm.
Iran understands that. We understood it.
Mm.
And increasingly, states are understanding this.
Yeah.
For instance, Ukraine has understood what has happened, and there was this conversation in
Mm.
Ukraine about the Budapest Memorandum, about signing the NPT and the rest of it. So, South Korea is having this conversation about nuclear weapons. Japan is having this conversation about nuclear weapons. So there is this sense
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, it's not. I mean, France, for instance, uh,
Mm.
developed its nuclear weapons capability after the Suez humiliation, but also when de Gaulle asked Nixon
Mm.
that, if it came to the crunch, will the Americans sacrifice New York to save Paris? And the answer is no. And
Mm.
so therefore, France needed to have its own deterrent.
Mm.
It's another story
Yeah.
whether the Soviets were interested in the French deterrent or not. But
Mm.
the point really is that France developed this. So states have this understanding,
Mm.
and so I think what Iran can do. Firstly, obviously, this war has to end. This war of aggression against Iran has to
Yeah.
end. Uh,
Exactly.
in the next phase, obviously, there are other issues to be discussed. My own sense is
Mm.
that Iran will obviously ask for sanctions relief,
Mm.
and as a quid for that uh,
Mm.
it might, as Sayyid Abbas Arakchi has also indicated
Mm.
more than once,
Mm.
that the 440 kg that lies buried somewhere or is hidden somewhere, we don't really know, can be downblended,
Mm.
which again is a pretty difficult process.
Mm.
Excuse me. But enrichment,
Mm.
the maximum concession
Mm.
that Iran might agree to
Mm.
is maybe uh, no enrichment for another 3 years or so, or maybe 2 years or so. Although I doubt it. I think
Yeah.
they're prepared to downblend the HEU that they have.
Mm.
If it is buried, then getting it out and it is now mixed up with lots of rubble and the rest of it, so is not going to be easy.
Mm.
But assuming that it was safe somewhere, it'll require a process to downblend it. That Iran will do, because it
Mm.
already has the know-how to move up the enrichment ladder. But
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to compromise on enrichment per se. I think what
Yeah.
they're going to say is that they're going to bring back the IAEA inspectors.
Mm.
The cameras everywhere, everything was being recorded.
Mm.
they'll have their full access. Iran also accepted the IAEA's additional protocol,
Mhm.
which is even tougher
Mm.
uh, and allows for even more intrusive monitoring and inspections. I think that Iran is prepared, but I don't think that it will
Why though? I
compromise.
mean, we are at the end of our program, but Ejaz, why though? Because what did Iran do to go back from go even thinner from JCPOA level? It was 3.6%, 7%. It was 5,000 centrifuges. What has Iran done to even go down from that point? Iran
So,
has
so
not been trigger happy as Israel and USA have been. And both of these countries have actually indicated they might use nuclear weapons on Iran. Iran has never said that. So why?
as I said earlier, the world is not fair. This is the global ecosystem in which you live.
Mhm.
Um, the United States, obviously, was always at one level a rogue state. Stephen Walt, who's a defensive realist of Kennedy School of Government, we wrote a recent piece in Foreign Policy where he actually referred to the United States as a rogue state. Uh,
Mhm.
and the Zionist entity, as John Mearsheimer mentioned, is the most murderous state
Yeah.
that you can find, genocidal state.
Mhm.
So to think that their interaction with Iran will be grounded in some kind of morality or some kind of norm or some kind of legal framework, no, that's not happening here. And by the way, Iran's resilience and Iran's asymmetric counter war has actually created a lot of space for Iran. And
Mm.
so Iran at this time would like to have a reprieve. It has to rebuild not just its infrastructure, it has to
Mm.
also rebuild, replenish, recoup its technological, edge,
Yeah.
its missiles, its launchers, its drones, it needs that kind of reprieve. And
Mm.
so it'll play ball for now. But my own sense is that this is something that I said last year,
Mm.
after the June war, that the only real guarantee that no one will aggress against Iran once
Mm.
again
Mm.
is not a guarantee that China can give or Russia can give or anyone in the United States can't give because the United
Mm.
States is an aggressor against Iran.
Yeah.
But it is the nuclear weapons capability. So from
Mm.
where I stand, at some point, Iran will make a beeline for it.
Yeah. But will it come to 0% from 3.67?
I don't think that my own sense is that obviously I'm not in the room. I don't have access to the Iranian decision making
Yeah.
cycle. But from where I stand, I don't think that the Iranians are going to compromise on enrichment per se.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the HEU stockpile is concerned, that probably is something that they'd probably use as a bargaining chip,
Mm.
downblending or whatever, but
Mm.
not enrichment per se.
Not in, yeah. But President Trump yesterday said, actually, he says so many things, but the last thing that he said yesterday was that Iran will be, that USA will not sign any deal that allows Iran anything beyond uh, beyond 20 years. So, I mean, uh, USA is looking at 20 years, beyond 20 years, 20 years plus. And we have heard from Iran, they are not going to go anything beyond 5 years. So, but there is a lot of hope of closing the deal this weekend. So let's see what happens. But with that, we will. I wish we had more time and we could discuss more because it's always so enriching to discuss these matters with you. I have learned a lot from you, and I would try to keep learning. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in. We have to conclude it here, but obviously it is not concluded. We are going to keep our eyes on it and keep you updated about whatever is going to happen. You can watch Ejaz Haider's Urdu language program on Naya Daur. He is there, I think, twice or thrice a week. And I am religious watcher of that, viewer of that program. Those who speak Urdu can go there, tune in to Naya Daur for his discussions on various subjects, including this one. And do subscribe to our channel. Do support independent journalism because we try our best to be objective without any slant, without any bias. We try because you always have to be biased towards truth. That we are. Anyway, so let's call it a day. And thank you very much once again, Ejaz Haider Saab. And we
Thank you
hope
for
that
having me.
you will grace our screen once more, more than once, and we will bother you again on this subject or on in others. Thank you very much, and have a very good day.
Thank you. You too.